Okay, so 1.0. Let's take a looky-loo at what they've got planned here. Obviously, we have the whole video we went over before, but now it's one single thing, and I bet this needs to be so much bigger, to be honest. This is super high level. So there's tons of details within what we're looking at here. First up is Starwear. Starwear. Can't believe they're actually calling it that. Implementing new technology that allows the combination of clothing and armor pieces on characters, further enhancing both player and NPC customization. This is like so undescriptive. If the whole point of this was just implementing tech that allows for you to wear clothing and armor at the same time, then we wouldn't need 34 minutes to talk about it. Granted, I guess some of that was the Space Worm stuff. It's more 18 minutes to talk about it. There's a whole bunch here that they need to talk about when it comes to like armor stats and stuff. This was a very lightweight introduction to this. But Starwear is, I guess that really is it. Starwear is that, and then this is more about specialized equipment. Here's Starwear though.
In clothing or armor? Yeah. So finally, you'll be able to mix and match. Starwear is fashion that meets purpose. As specializations provide you with a multitude of stats to combine, you'll also be able to choose the visual style that you want. But beware, with added options also comes the responsibility of choosing the right combination for the right situation. Let's look at some of the possibilities that Starwear will be able to provide you.
It is pretty cool to be able to have armor on with clothes. That's nice. This is a really good getup right here. The whole top hat with the armor on the arms, good stuff. I just think this whole panel probably could have been a little bit of a better representation of like how you're going to equip your player going forward. What kind of options are they even concepting right now for equipping your player? Because right now that is so up in the open. We don't know what exactly their plans are, how they're going to go about that. And I thought this was a great opportunity to do that. And also to touch back on the modular bags system that they made last year, that they introduced us to. Haven't really seen anything about that either. Starwear is what will allow for the modular bags. See, but they didn't say that. So now I'm like, is Starwear going to be something that includes those modular bags, or is that completely different? Yeah, this system. So they didn't even touch on this again, which was interesting. So that's Starwear. That's the first card on here. All right, law and security. The next card. Implementing an updated security system that handles law infractions along with security responses to criminal activity. Dude, this means like basically nothing. Updating the law system. Cool. We know all about that. This needs so much detail because we still don't really know just how deep they're going to go with the law system and security versus using armistice zones and stuff like that. They told you on the card exactly how deep they're going to go. It handles infractions. Yeah, this should definitely be, I mean, this should be, it's terrible to go off of the pictures here for what they're actually planning because these pictures can be pretty random. I would hope though that this is security in cities like they're showing here and the removal of armistice zones. Next one is Planetary Shields. Introducing Planetary Shield tech, which provides a maximum protection for ground locations, including player bases, from hostile attacks. So, Planetary Shields are both a thing for lawful star systems, in which you can, when you build a base in a high security star system, not lawful, sorry, you will automatically always have protection. These Planetary Shields are, man, I really just need to put this over here. These Planetary Shields are impenetrable. They cannot be defeated. You are permanently safe if you build a base where a Planetary Shield is. Once you get to the more dangerous systems, then you start to get to the places where the game won't be protecting you just by automatically being in that place. Your base is going to be up to the whims of other people. You will have to buy your own defenses, your own shields, your own guns, possibly at some point NPCs that can help to protect, but you'll have to have a way to defend your base while you're not there. Or they're also developing some kind of org-focused gameplay for the low security systems where there are planetary shields that can be acquired and achieved but have to be held, kind of like a King of the Hill sort of style of gameplay, but on a star system basis. Check us out.
Also, if you're in a lawful system, you'll need to find a transient security of the lawful system. Pyro have no the unlawful system in Pyro. Unlawful systems have no laws at all, and with that comes opportunity. Pyro, as an example, has an abundance of high-quality resources and is a hotbed of criminal activity, the literal definition of high risk, high reward. With crafting now requiring resources, you're going to want to create bases to mine and extract them. This is where base raiding will become a new form of PvP, and it's founded on a combined arms ethos. Defending players will be able to add defenses such as walls, automated turrets, and most importantly, ground shields, a localized version of the planetary shields used in lawful systems that absorb the most powerful of weaponry. No longer can you just turn up and drop a Moab. One huge difference, though, compared to planetary shields, is that these shields can be disabled. You will have to strategically assess each base and punch your way through its defenses.
That's important right there. Listen in again.
One huge difference, though, compared to planetary shields, is that these shields can be disabled.
So what it sounds like he's saying there is that planetary shields, which are something that you'll be able to find in high security systems, won't be disabled. So maybe somebody can slip past the planetary shield if that's possible, and you might need other defenses in order to defend your base there. The high security system itself probably has other defenses that keep people from doing that. But specifically, you can sneak into these bases and disable these shields in low security systems, but the high security systems won't allow for that.
You will have to strategically assess each base and punch your way through its defenses on foot to eventually bring down the shield generator. Once the shield is down, then you have options. You want to raise it to the ground, you can bomb it from the air. If you want to extract all the resources, though, you'll need to infiltrate the base using explosive charges and hacking while fighting off the defenders. Now, both piracy and base raiding is founded on sandbox gameplay. And again, that's the essence of Star Citizen. But we want to add more. Something where you can log on and immediately find the action and fight for a purpose. So first up, let's go on a history lesson. In the early 2600s, there was a fledgling corporation called SEAL that had developed a new system-wide planetary shield technology, the same technology that will provide protection for your bases today. To prove this tech, they wanted to use Nyx and Pyro systems as a testbed. With the promise of high-quality resources, SEAL lured independent miners to man the shield network in exchange for shield protection for their settlements. As a prototype, SEAL couldn't provide total coverage over all the mining settlements, and so they created the SEAL Tokens program, allowing the most industrious factions to purchase shield coverage for their work. The network consisted of multiple linked bases on the ground that then linked to several stations in orbit around each planet that then connected to the nearest relay in the shield network, which eventually linked back to the shield core, which oversaw system-wide distribution of the shield technology. factions could then earn seal tokens for working on any part of the network. They could then use these tokens to buy shield coverage. But with the competition amongst factions being so intense, Seal was only able to offer shielding to the hardest workers. Unfortunately, due to outlaw interference, Seal eventually pulled out of Pyro and Nyx and pushed for a more automated solution in more civilized systems. So fast forward to present day, without Seal's backing, they had to pull out and leave it as it is. And welcome to Station Warfare.
Theaters of Station Wars?
With the Seal network still in place, but lacking resources, orgs can take ownership of these structures to gain access to Planetary shield tech. Let's go! Which, as you know, would make their bases invulnerable. Unfortunately, there's a catch. There isn't enough to go around. And as in the good old Seal days, the system still works via the Seal token program. To earn tokens, you'll have to assault a location and then deposit resources to power the network. This begins with ground bases and ends at the shield core. Each structure occupied will then accrue Seal tokens over time, with larger structures earning more, and at the end of each week, you must then use these tokens to purchase shield protection. With shield coverage being limited, though, the system automatically selects the orgs with the highest bid from across all shards. Meaning for that week only, a certain number of orgs will gain access to shield protection. So this is a chance for your org to become the de facto leader of a system. It means you'll be able to log on and immediately find the action and fight for your org. And finally, it's not just sandbox PvP or ganking. You are fighting for a purpose. So once you have won your bid, what then? Well, to talk more about that, I'd like to welcome Ian Leyland, Star Citizen's creative director, to the stage.
All right, so that was a pretty hefty explanation of not just the planetary shields, but really some of the gameplay surrounding at least a version of them. It creates a persistent, always available location and excuse for groups to be in constant battle. Like, I think a lot of people will be fighting over resources and land, but this just gives one more reason for orgs to be at each other's throats in systems where they're clearly being built for there to be more danger in combat. I don't think this is something that's going to take away the whole star system. Like, you can still live and do your own things while this is all going on in the background, but there do need to be reasons for large groups to be going after stuff, and the more they can build into the game, the less that smaller groups or single players might have to deal with that if it gets a little out of hand. Ownership is the next card here that we're going over in the list of 1.0 features that they're working on. Implementing a robust ownership system of items, vehicles, and more, including the ability to transfer ownership both legally and illegally. This is a very important one. It's a lot of features on this list are the kinds of things that we would sit here during monthly reports and be like, hey, this is foundational to the game. This is like, we cannot move forward without this. And ownership is definitely one of them. Like, there's no way to play or trade. There's no way to give somebody a ship to use that they can then open and close hangars. Like, you got to have the pilot come into the ship and sit down in the pilot seat and then open the hangar and then get out so that the other people can use it. There's no way to really give people cargo in order for them to go and distribute or do something with that cargo that you can identify. So ownership it's a stupidly painful situation right now in the game, and I really hope that they can get this in sooner than later. Yeah, dude, this kind of thing can help make people who spent a whole bunch of money buying a whole bunch of ships not feel so bad when they realize the game comes out and they can only use one ship at a time. Being able to loan your ships out to people who you don't know, or people you do know, maybe you're just on their $45 package for so-and-so amount of weeks at a certain type of rate, would be fantastic for this game, for people who don't have ships and people who do. So Hopefully we can see a lot of different features like that come from the idea of an ownership system being created. Yeah, the pink slips, ship pink slips, black slips, a used ship sales lot. Well, how cool would it be if you could salvage ships, find components, rip them out of different builds, put them all together in a ship that you found somewhere on some moon crashed, and then sell that ship? How fucking sick would it be to build a ship completely up from being destroyed, using custom parts you found over your adventures over the course of a week or two, and then selling that ship for 10 times the amount that all of those parts would have sold for otherwise? From components, to repairing the hull, to reloading its guns, to like just the fuses, all of that. Really, really cool potential gameplay showing up there, and with ownership, it could allow you to do more things with that stuff after you've managed to figure that out, you know? Or just finding ships in general and them not being somebody else's ownership that you're stealing. Yeah, sort of like what happens with No Man's Sky. I mean, this fits perfectly into the possibility of different starting situations. I'll say it again, I'll say it all the time. I think we should have multiple ways to start the game. One where you're starting out as kind of like a scrub in the city working for a corpo. One where you're a Beltalowda and you're starting out in a space station. Maybe you start out in like Grimhex or Nyx or in a space station in some asteroid belt. One where you start out as a survivalist, just off on some planet or moon, and you have to get the resources and stuff to craft your ship back to health like No Man's Sky. Give us those multiple starts, because there's so much. It's ridiculous how many different types of gameplay they're putting into this game. It would suck if everybody started the game the exact same way, when there's so many variables. The amount more stories and word of mouth that provides when people can share stories about how they started the game and how it was this much different because they chose this backstory. Yeah, it'd be like with Cyberpunk, you know, you get 3 different starts, except for instead of like with Cyberpunk, it's not just 3 different areas doing practically the same thing and then a split screen to show you everything else. It's actual different types of gameplay based on where you are. If you start in the space station, the power goes out in the station and you have to be used. You get hired to go and EVA outside and repair a fuse and repair something that got sabotaged. And then that leads into an investigation mission where you track somebody off the space station and towards the nearby planet. And that's how you start. You start in the city. Well, you get contracted out by the city to run some security work for the sewers under Lorville. You catch somebody on a smuggling mission and they introduce you, give you a chance to maybe join them. Do you want to take the less legal route, make some more money, and smuggle something into and out of the city, taking you on some story that leads off into space? Or do you want to stick with Lorville, run the security, get higher rep, and get paid when you get back up to the actual city? Or start you out in like a moon. Could be a moon that's too hot, too cold. Could it be a moon with certain minables? Maybe you spawn near an outpost with a crafting bench. You use all that to get your ship up and running and get back off the moon. Like, choices. All right, next card we got here is the guilds system. This is, I think this is the majority of gameplay for a solo player in this game. At least maybe a solo player who's not into sandbox gameplay. You're more about the theme park type MMO. You're more about, I want to get into the game, get told what to do, and be able to do it in what way I want to do, rather than like coming up with things like a sandbox game would. It says introducing guilds to the persistent universe, which provides rewards and content for different professions to players as they complete contracts and earn reputation. Huge, huge, huge part of sort of really just like understanding the game and working your way through the game. This has already been part of what we are supposed to be doing in Star Citizen. This is something that came all the way back here. Winter of 2021 is where they really started to suggest and share what this kind of system would be all about. Check it out.
The difference with an organization is that they can have several career scopes. So a security company like Crusader Security might have a bounty scope, but they also might have a defense scope or a jailer scope or any number of these career scopes that we want to track your different levels of career proficiency with different kinds of gameplay. Within scopes, we have this concept of standings. These are the ranks that you move through from negative whatever to positive whatever, and we can tell when we assess you either through the missions or the mission givers.
You can tell here they didn't even have guilds figured out yet. They were just talking about orgs and the contacts within those orgs.
Or NPCs, or however they are looking at you, what standing you are at. One of the things that we are very excited to have is these reputations giving you things when you get to those higher standings. The idea is that this is giving you benefits and rewards for progressing through the game. It's a progression system at its heart.
This is like super fucking important. It's actually one that I think should have been getting a lot more focus all this time. They've been a little low effort on reputation, I would say. It got dropped for a while, then picked up by the mission team, and even the missions team hasn't been able to really work much into this. I mean, last year at CitizenCon, we were being told that we were going to see reputation-based rewards for cargo hauling missions, and that those were coming in with the cargo hauling changes and stuff that happened in 3.24, which clearly isn't in. So it can be a little bit difficult to, put a lot of hope into reputation as progression, but it is meant to be the primary reputation in the game, or the primary progression
of fulfilling contracts and raising reputation with these companies. For rewards, we'll have branded ship and tool skins, branded clothing. There will be collectibles to decorate your hab, hangar, or ship, or you can put them anywhere you want. And there'll be more exclusive rewards that we'll be revealing later. Thank you.
So that hasn't really happened yet. And now we get to this CitizenCon where they kind of start to tell us how this functions across the entirety of the game. And they've expanded it to be in guilds and orgs. And your guild and orgs will have different relationships with you, with other guilds and orgs in the game, with your own org, with other orgs. Everything will have a different understanding of one another. It kind of links back to the virtual reality, virtual AI we talked about in the beginning of this stream. Everything sort of links back together to give you a sense of progression and custom experience based on who you work with or for in the game. Here is a nice little rundown of the different guilds and what they do.
Considered by many to be the new jewel of the Empire, Terra has been a shining star against the more imperialistic tendencies of Earth, even in the darkest days of the Messer regime. Now, many believe that Terra should be the new center of the UEE. I don't know how you all feel about that. Yeah, a lot of division. But that's our starting five. Each system and each planet will be featuring the massive level of outposts, POIs, stations, biomes, and exploration options that we've been perfecting with Stanton and Pyro, and you've been seeing in some of the other presentations this weekend. But we're adding one more level. We're also going to be adding location stories. Now, these will be short, NPC-driven missions sprinkled across our landing zones and cities that will exist outside of the main story, but will help provide an additional bit of lore and character to the location that they take place in. So, that's our main story. Let's talk more about the guilds that Rich mentioned. First, a quick recap. Guilds act as a governing body for clusters of professions and factions with a reputation and progression system that will offer rewards the more you work for them. And I want to call out two things. One, I'm not going to have time to dive into all of the missions that you're going to see on this board, but just know that every mission type is either in the 1.0 roadmap or already in production. And second, we're also looking to move missions away from the mobiGlas whenever possible. Sure, it will always be an easy way for us to get additional game content in, but we want you talking with people. So to aid that,
get out of here.
We're going to be adding characters to represent the factions that you'll be working for that will help sell their personality. Now, some, they'll still interact with you via the written word, but some will call and check in on your performance. And others, you may have to meet in person from time to time. So, let's walk through them. Here we have the first guild that Rich showed, the United Resource Workers. Whether you're eager to earn credits, mining valuable resources from remote corners of the universe, sifting through detritus to try and salvage some valuable components, or even just acting as a technician. You'll find plenty to do with employers like Shubin Interstellar, United Wayfarers
Honestly, even
Club.
this, I think, I will accept that fuel stuff seems like it will be lower down in 1.0 than I thought it would be, because there's a lot refining wise that you can do when it comes to fuel, but it feels like a lot of the refining they've talked about has been solid material. And they did mention in the base building stuff that there'd also be gas refining and stuff like that, but I'm iffy on what they're saying about fuel gathering and stuff. This is a very cool guild, though. I think GII, our own organization, will be heavily involved in this guild. We do a lot of industrial stuff, and with our focus around shipments and manufacturing, farming, and getting those places, I think this will be a good friend of ours. That being said, though, because I think this gets a little misunderstood when I say that, we are also providing our own services in terms of security, exploration, land acquisition, surveying, and things. We are not just an industrial org, and we're always looking for combat folks. Also, something interesting I noticed about refining the other day that I gotta talk about. Maybe I'll do like a video on it. It seemed pretty cool. They are almost talking about refining, and I didn't realize that they are. But we'll talk more about that later.
And more. Next, you have one of the oldest unions in the UEE, the Interstellar Transport Guild. This will be the go-to place for everybody looking to make their fortune hauling.
This is a good one to keep in mind that you will see here. They have a transporter section. So passenger delivery, vehicle delivery, and data delivery are 3 different types of hauling that we don't have in the game right now. This being data running, this being obviously being a passenger transport, and this being vehicle delivery, which would benefit things like the Ironclad, perhaps, the Liberator, and other ships that are built specifically to move vehicles and not just cargo. You also obviously got cargo delivery. You've got recovery cargo, which is kind of like what we do for bodies already with the investigation missions. Then you have trader and courier. It'll be interesting to see what missions go with trader as opposed to hauler. Like, they're going to actually have you put your own money on the line? Are they going to give you lump sums of money to try and get a specific deal that they know they can't because they're at a certain organization? Like, how does that function in missions?
Trading. Some of the factions that many of you already work for now, such as Ling Family Hauling, Redwind, and FTL. And we're going to be adding something special for the daredevils out there, the Imperial Sports Federation. So aside from the usual racetracks that are both legitimate and illegitimate, we're actually going to be leveraging some of our existing mechanics to build new sports and provide an outlet for all you Murray Cup enthusiasts, cargo Olympians, and competitors to see just who's the best out there.
So, like, this means they have to have Ellis, right? I don't understand. How can they do this and not have Ellis? What is this madness? Also, where is Saddleball? Come on. Also, industrial athletics. Dude, this is such a good reason for why Arena Commander should allow for all of this. Arena Commander should basically be private rentable servers that exist in Star Citizen that allow you to do whatever gameplay in Star Citizen you want to do in a closed environment. A, it gets them their private servers that they promised at the Kickstarter without having to split up the PU. B, it lets people try out gameplay super fast compared to getting into the PU and doing all of that. 3, it allows people to film and do things without being interrupted by other things happening. And 7, they could put Arena Commander on Steam or like somewhere else where people can try it out and realize there's more to that and then try it. It's like that could be a third game on its own. I hope that they do stuff like that so that we can see more cargo Olympics and mining Olympics and stuff like that. That's fun.
And competitors to see just who's the best out there. For those who dream of exploring, I'm sure we have a couple here.
Yeah, this is like the most exciting
the
guild.
Academy of Sciences that was brought up yesterday in the social presentation, if you saw that. This is a science guild that will include factions like the Imperial Cartography Center.
Hey, Red Monster.
Who will task you with a variety of missions to better understand our universe, such as sending you into a nebula to do deep scans, or finally seeing what's at the bottom of that planetary canyon. We're going to have a new faction called High Point Wilderness Specialists.
See, this is also like some people were saying exploration in the game is dead. Look at all the different places where they're trying to create opportunities for missions. They can't even plan to do this if they are going to just kill the possibility of exploration. You got to remember how big these star systems are, and the fact that people simply haven't explored all of them. There's a lot of points of interest and little things that you could put throughout a star system that could still be interesting for people to find. Red Monsters in YouTube chat. The old celebrity over there. There you go, getting that shout out on Twitch, man. I hope you're having a good week. Also, this says corpse instead of crops, so it's all a scam.
Who will offer missions associated with the various fauna that we're starting to get into the game, from population control missions to harvesting specific resources for research. Now, I don't know if we have some people who'd like to do combat, but our combat guilds were doing something a little
Carfters.
different. Now, previous to this, these are all of our profession guilds. But for our combat guilds, they operate a little differently. See, these two are diametrically opposed to each other. So once you pledge allegiance to one, the other marks you as an enemy. On the lawful side, we have the Mercenary Guild. They represent factions like Eckhart Security, the Bounty Hunters Guild, and even some military contractors. So whether you're pulling together a team of specialists to go assault a ground base, hunting down an elusive criminal, or putting together a recon run to drum up some intel, Mercenary Guild's got you covered. On the flip side,
this is so, like I was saying, this is still going to be something that GII is doing plenty of. There's actually quite a few things that haven't really been mentioned all that much that GII will be included in, but specifically finding VIPs, protecting VIPs, this kind of stuff is going to be important to us because not only do we want to be the provider of crops and services in the area we're in, we're also trying to keep it safe for the people who are there or the people who are aligned with GII.
To drum up some intel, Mercenary Guild's got you covered. On the flip side, we have the Council.
Is bounty hunting... Yeah, why isn't bounty hunting part of the Mercenary Guild? Where is... Oh, it is. It's right here. So yeah, they're going to have to break up how they do missions anyways, because it's confusing as it is, telling somebody, yeah, take a mercenary contract. The heck does a mercenary contract mean?
On the flip side, we have the Council. Now, this is a shadowy group comprised of representatives from various gangs, syndicates, and outlaws who mandate criminal activity throughout the verse.
It's also keen to notice here that even though these are criminal missions, they call them, they're still other types of missions just wrapped up in the criminal enterprise. Scan area, scan object, deploy objects, kill VIP, race fixing fraud, interdict target. These are all just other flavored missions from the other types of game, just wrapped up in the underbelly of the game itself. And I hope that they can both provide enough content like this to make criminal players have fun in this game without breeding too much of a criminal element that focuses on other players. I think it's completely fine to focus on other players occasionally and every once in a while, but it's, in my opinion, I think it's a more interesting game when the people who want to do criminal stuff are balanced PvE, PvP. And the game needs to be good enough to provide enough fun that people don't always want to go for players. So that just helps to make more systems that has criminal elements without having more intense criminal dangers. And maybe part of that will also be just having more game-controlled pirates that are NPCs than just players. Can our corp align with more than one guild? We're going to get to that right after this. Yeah, this is pretty high level. It is pretty high level, and I honestly was hoping it would be a little lower level, but they touched on most of the things I think they needed to.
You'll be able to throw in with rough and tumble gangs like the Headhunters and the Dead Saints, or work your way up to join highline criminal syndicates like the Atonis or the Drop Kings. But remember, the underworld is a dangerous place run by greed and power. So mercenary guild reps might not be the only people you have to worry about, as the syndicates are always looking for loyal soldiers who will hurt their competition and tip the scales of power in their favor. So as you can see, There's going to be a universe of exciting storytelling opportunities for you to undertake in 1.0. But one more thing. We're also going to revitalize our social behaviors to make the populations not only feel more alive and reactive and off chairs, but better reflect the tone and flavor of the areas that they're
still be on
inhabiting.
chairs. Come on now.
We want to see the people of Loreville slowly trudging through the streets, overburdened by the ruthless contracts, just as much as we want to see the tourists of Orison gleefully moving from attraction to attraction. And all of this is what's going to make Star Citizen be the experience we set out to make. A diverse universe with a rich tapestry of stories, characters, and experiences for you to live in.
And protection.
So that's guilds and reputation, and really just a big part of how the progression in the game works. I think Rich comes in here and talks a little bit more about how this progression will work specifically. He's talking about core progression here, death of a spaceship, yada yada yada. So this is kind of like the gameplay loop and how it would work based off of this.
I actually had to ask them to take the variants out because it didn't fit on this slide. And let's zoom all the way into the prospector, a stalwart of the mining community. But let's say I really fancy acquiring a military Mark II Hornet. Let's go on a simplified journey of how I could get one. Firstly, I know I won't be able to buy it, as it's a military ship, so I'm going to need to craft it. That means I will need the fabrication hangar blueprint. Luckily, I can earn it by doing mining missions to gain rep with the United Resource Workers, and I already have the perfect ship, my trusty prospector. With blueprint in hand and some excess credits, I can now purchase a small plot of land on Stanton and build my fabrication hangar. Step 1, complete. Now I need to grab the Mark II Hornet blueprint. For this, I need mercenary rep, and more importantly, a combat ship. With that in mind, I will do a few more mining contracts to earn enough credits to purchase a Mustang from the dealership. Now I can start doing combat pilot missions for the Mercenary Guild, so I can unlock the Mark II Hornet blueprint. Okay, step 2 of our simplified loop is complete. I have the Mark II blueprint, but I need the resources to craft it. So I come full circle back to my prospector, but this time I'm mining for resources instead. As you can see, this closes the loop. No longer am I mining just because I like it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But now I am mining for a purpose and for multiple reasons. For credits, for reputation, for resources, for blueprints, and ultimately as a stepping stone to crafting my own ships to enjoy other professions.
So
and this is just
that's your solo player progression. That's your gameplay. That's where I think a lot of the drive to actually doing things as a solo player, not as an org or a group, but as a solo player in this game will come from. Upgrading your kit, finding the things you like, figuring out how to use them, pursuing more missions. Like, there's only so much you can do to create incentives to pursue gameplay for yourself. Money, reputation, freedom of gameplay. And those 3 things are basically you run through the guilds, you do missions for them, you figure out what the best rewards you want are, what the best guilds to partner with are for the blueprints you want, and you grind away at that. And preferably that grind should be fun. It should be different encounters, different factions, different locations, and different things you're doing in each of these missions, but ultimately it all just comes down to like, what are you working towards? And a big part of this is going to be the reputation that you can get when you work with the different guilds in the game. So there's your solo player gameplay. Now let's go back to what they were saying about orgs and guilds, because there are also some complications there with how orgs are going to work and how you represent the org that you are a part of. In fact, I need to go over this a few more times in order to fully understand what they mean by all of this. Let's talk about orgs.
Something. But they have also been successful with 2 beacons. So, well, at least you can assess the situation before going into it. It ensures your safety when doing a good deed. And yeah, I think that's it for beacons. So
Well,
We've got one more big thing I guess we need to talk about, right? Which we're really excited for.
Org business is going to be
yeah. Look at
huge. What do you mean by that, Red?
That is exciting. I like this one.
Did someone mess with the slides?
In Sweden, we call this a double barrel.
Well, it's not time for lunch just yet, so...
The Swedish double barrel, huh?
I'd like to talk about player organization.
Yeah, data running's really interesting to me
That's
too.
all right.
It sounds like we've got a few people in orgs in the house today. But Benoit, you talked about this a while ago, right?
it's been 84 years. So I was originally asked to outline the original ideas behind how organizations would work in the very early days of the project. A younger Ben, big ideas, same ideas, now action. You have no idea how happy I am that we're finally tackling this task and this design in the game to truly give you all the tools you need to make your empire in SC. There are more than 70,000 organizations registered on the RSI website. 69.
That's such a ridiculous amount of orgs for a game that's not even out yet. But a lot of these orgs are like 1 or 2 people.
1,999 of them of decent size, and then test. Ridiculous.
Too big.
But all of those have custom identities, logos, charter. The amount of creative and high-quality content you guys have always produced has always amazed us and inspired us. Those orgs range from a small group of friends with just the name to large companies spanning a large amount of players with the intent to share wealth, missions, and campaigns.
Honestly, Red, I won't say most interested. I'm very curious about how it's going to work in terms of org taxes, in how you can format payouts for taking part in the org. If you could do that org-wide, if you could do it based on who attends an event and stuff. Like, there's a lot to be said about how you can run your org to be its own entity while also allowing your org members to live their own life, and check in when they want to, versus just always being aware of the fact that there's an org waiting for them to come back. You know what I mean? Like, do you tax your org members based on the amount of space they use at your base, on the amount of services they use from people who are also in the org, or just based on the amount of time that they're in the org? Because then that's rough.
Hands together. Now we want to make those orgs matter in the game. Should you choose to join or create an organization, we want this social aspect to be part of your progression. But don't let me spoil it. Let's get a real designer to cover this stuff. JJ, you are a self-proclaimed big MMO player yourself, so why don't you give us the details?
I didn't realize I went around self-proclaiming so much, but thank you. But as an MMO player, I understand the different terminology is used in a lot of different games. So I just wanted to very quickly go over how we're using it in Star Citizen. So orgs, as many of you know, the players coming together to achieve a goal, whatever you want your goals to be. We give you the framework and you set it up and drive it forward. And we were going to shout a few of them out, but I was actually told we couldn't play favorites, so we actually made our own. So we've got the Fellowship of JJ
and the Balt's Fault Buccaneers.
Those
What?
guys.
You guys made your own orgs?
Yeah, we kind of left you out. Sorry about that, James.
We also have NPC factions, and they're already in the game. And you can earn or lose reputation with them. Now, contracts and doing nice things will earn you rep. And killing and stealing and all of that horrible stuff you love, Ben, that will lose you rep.
What if they
Ling
like
and
being
Red
killed?
Wind and the ones that you can see on there are just a few examples, and there's going to be a lot more to come going forward. Now, there are also guilds, like the Interstellar Transport Guild. And these are essentially collections of several factions, and we're putting them in a position to be more prevalent.
What? You're saying there's something bigger than factions?
Oh yeah. So they're going to be something you interact with a lot, and they essentially handle contracts for the factions. But you will earn rep with both still, but as the bigger entity, the guild will be much more important. And you'll find out a lot more about guilds tomorrow at the Stars My Destination presentation.
We just looked at that. Wow.
Again, a tease.
But now we can dive into some of our new org systems.
Yes. Let's start with the basics.
I want to find.
Yeah,
or I wanna recruit
org filed
more
contracts would be amazing.
Yeah, so welcome to the new app for everything orgs.
Very nice.
with the mask.
It's interesting how much different the Moby-Glass looks from the Squadron one now, too. I wonder why they decided to go with something so different.
Jeez. With the mask.
So, orgs can be big and complex, and as we said, some of them have thousands of members. So when we designed the app, well, we made sure that we took this into account, but it's also something that we can expand on moving forward. So, let's have a look at it.
Now, I'd like to point out that the Fellowship of JJ, like every designer-based org, is really focused on things like progression gameplay and mission and crafting and leveling up. But my Bolt's Fault Buccaneers, no, they're the real deal. Now, we don't do any of that stuff. Now, we're in it for profit, interdiction lines, shipboarding action. We get all that sweet cargo for free.
All right, I'm going to skip forward to the guild stuff because that's why we were really here. So this is the
Like the
interesting part.
Buccaneers, the Corvette Club, or the Slam Truckers. But I
Yeah, the calendar is
see me in
amazing.
the verse if I have multiple choices. Surely I need to pick a banner.
So that's covered by something new.
Oh, these are all
called
concepts.
representing.
These are not
and it's actually
screenshots.
quite similar to the existing affiliation main status system on the website. So if you're in multiple orgs, you choose which one you want to represent, but you can only represent one at a time. Now, there are ongoing benefits for being in orgs, which we'll get to in a minute, but choosing who you represent asks which one you want to benefit from at any given time. But why? Well, we wanted to support players who like to play with different groups of friends. But we didn't want players who are just in one to be at a major disadvantage to those that are in the full 6. Because really, joining multiple orgs should be your choice and not feel like it's a necessity.
And there's no need for you to switch which org you're representing to see things like this Moby screen or org chat. But we want to put limitations on how often you can switch to avoid exploiting the systems. And we don't want to punish anyone who's, playing by the rules. And a big part of representing is visualizing it in-world. We want you to be able to fly your banner for your org. So we're adding another MMO staple to the game. Tags.
Holy
So the
We got org
leader
tags.
will be able to set a tag for the org, and this gets appended to the name while you're representing. So you can easily see who is in which org at a glance. So we'll have it in chats, in world, and if you're not interested in this stuff, you have the option to turn it off as well.
How novel! We'll be able to identify people around us.
Amazing.
Org, an in-game guild. It's your opportunity references on the...
Okay, so here's the
I'm guessing
important
they fit
part.
into this somehow.
Yes, so you may have spotted a few references on the UI to alignment earlier, but what is it? So, it's your opportunity to form a relationship between org and in-game guild. Now, just as you in personal rep with the guilds, you can with your org now as well. So your org leaders pick which one you want to align with, and while representing, org members doing specific action, like contracts with them, will increase the org's alignment with the guild. But which guild should you pick? So all of our guilds are going to have a specific theme and associated gameplay. And you can basically pick the one that matches your theme or benefits your org the most. So a combat-focused org, like the Fellowship, might want to align with themselves with the Mercenary Guild. Or one that enjoys making cash through trading and hauling, they'd probably want to align with the Interstellar Transport Guild.
Yeah, so how do these benefits work? Well, as your alignment with a guild, as it raises, you both unlock new benefits from that guild, as well as improve your previously unlocked benefits. So, for example, if I align my org with the Academy of Science Guild, we might get research speed improvements. As my org performs contracts for this guild, alignment raises, and that speed benefit gets better. And
See, I do think we would probably be in the Science Guild partnership, although the industrial one could work.
Other guilds will have other types of benefits. Finally, on guild alignment, you are not locked in forever. You can switch at any time. However, that will put your alignment back at 0, so it's a big choice.
So every member gets full benefits.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing there.
Not necessarily. We're also introducing loyalty. So it's similar to the org's alignment with a guild, but this represents your relationship to the org you're in. Anything you do that benefits the org while you are representing it will gain you loyalty with them. So for example, you could be doing missions for the org-aligned guild, or you could be depositing money and materials into org storage.
Org storage?
Yeah, so there's
Another
there's a pretty decent amount of stuff that goes into your relationship with guilds, and I think this is why this is actually one of the bigger parts of Star Citizen 1.0 in general, and definitely one of the main things that is going to bring content and some interest to solo players more than anybody else. All right, past guilds, we've got taxes and warranty. This is the money sink of the game. This is where a lot of what your earning goes to, rather than just new ships. So in this slide, it says implementing a new system that handles medical, item, and vehicle insurance and associated fees, as well as a mechanism to retrieve lost or stolen or destroyed vehicles. So, whole bunch of different insurance on medical when you die, on item when you lose that, and on vehicles when it's destroyed or, hurt in some way, as well as the insurance claims function. This is pretty important because this goes in this is a lot about LTI, which is something that really confused people for a long time because they just kind of had it in there as a FOMO tool, and they still do. But now we have a better idea of how it's supposed to
Where
work.
tax is too great.
Here's a little
If
explainer.
everything is too cheap and the money coming into the economy is too great, we'll have massive inflation. And this is where taxes and insurance come in. Boo. We'll have two main taxes: inheritance tax as part of Death of a Spaceman, and security tax for your base that will cover the cost of Planetary shield tech. Insurance, on the other hand, will be split between medical insurance, which covers your hospital imprints, and probably the most important one of all, ship insurance. Now, as we have Death of a Spaceman, we also need Death of a Spaceship. Losing your ship should be significant. Right now, for example, over 90% of all claims in the verse are for ships that have not been destroyed. And this is where ship insurance and our new warranty mechanic comes in. First up, we'll have 3 tiers of insurance, with level 1 being chassis insurance, level 2, chassis and component insurance, and level 3, chassis, component, and decorations insurance.
All right, my bed sheets are insured.
Now, insurance by itself will only pay out credits based on the wear and age of your ship. Insurance, I think you want to listen to this bit because it's important. Insurance with a warranty, though, will give you back a new ship, plus any other equipment or decorations based on the tier of insurance you had. Okay, so this is the bit you need to listen to. All ships bought on the pledge store will come with a permanent warranty and their appropriate insurance.
So that basically means that if you bought a ship with real money, you will never be able to lose it. But if you buy a ship with real money in this game, you might not get it back if you don't insure it or get a warranty. Insurance will give you the payout for whatever the ship is worth at the time you lost it. Warranty will give you the actual ship. But if you don't have insurance, then you'd have to pay for the ship when you get it back. So it's it sounds kind of complicated. It's not really that complicated. Just think of insurance covers the cost of your ship, warranty covers your ship itself. Doing both obviously covers both of those things. And This is one of the big money sinks. When you go to a new space station and you want to get a hangar where you can leave cargo or minables or anything there while you're busy, you got to pay rental fees for the hangar. Same goes for when you're building a base or when you're getting an apartment in a city, when you're buying a new spaceship, when you're getting new quantum drives. Paying into those insurance fees is kind of what keeps the economy going. So there's your progression in terms of money, insurance, tax, and warranty. Reputation V2, we kind of have talked about that already with guilds and stuff. It says reiterating the reputation system with guilds and rewards, as well as the addition of an improved reputation app. Something that we kind of were expecting, I think, when we saw this last year at CitizenCon. So I think 2024, they really dropped the ball with reputation. And we should have at least heard more about it throughout the year. New player professions coming after reputation here. Addition of new player professions to the persistent universe, such as builder, crafter, explorer, athlete, and more. Also, obviously, refiner, passenger transport, data runner, just different stuff like that. And really, this was, again, kind of the important thing I think needed to be talked about in this talk. But what I think they also should have done was really gone into detail about what each of these professions will be. Take one profession and give us a detailed understanding of how in-depth it'll be at 1.0. Is mining going to include the idea that we are looking at specific parts of asteroids? Are we going to be boring into the ground? Are we going to be using other catalytic agents to break up rocks? Is salvage going to be using salvage charges? Does it include fuel siphoning? I don't know, passenger transport, are we still going to have a drink maker? Take any profession that you have in the game and give us an idea of how far you want to take it for 1.0. Because as of right now, we don't really have a model profession to tell us what their goal is for that. I guess that's next CitizenCon. Death of a Spaceman. Oh boy. This system will forever raise the stakes in the persistent universe as it adds the ability for your player character to incur permanent injury or even death. This is a hot topic for a lot of people, one that they will probably have to explain a lot more about over the next probably year or two. Permanent injury is what leads to cybernetics, which we know pretty clearly is going to be a thing. I mean, so we've seen the work that they've done on these, and we know at some point you will have to get one of these when you die too many times in a specific way that damages a limb beyond repair. These probably won't change your gameplay much, but they will change your aesthetic. And then there's also permanent death for your character, which would mean you'd have to have the inheritance tax, which is a big money sink and can kind of help to encourage people not to die too much. And also just, again, part of the money sink, part of the risk of losing your character. AI blades. This was one that people were a little bit concerned with. A new vehicle component enabling autonomous operation of various aspects of vehicles, such as turrets. We already have one subcomponent that is fuses that go inside of relays. And we've got life support subcomponents as well. So this will be more subcomponents for computers, known as AI blades for different stuff. What else we got? Player space stations. Oh boy. All right. Implementing the ability to build homes among the stars with the introduction of player-made space bases. Do these have to be in orbit around a planet? Do they have to be even within the confines of a star system? No freaking clue the details around this, but this is a big initiative that I didn't expect to see. If whenever people come into our conversations or stream or anything and they talk about feature creep, this will be what I point towards. Base building and space stations are a huge change from the game as it originally was, obviously with base building because we didn't have planets where you could build bases. But space stations I don't think were ever mentioned until these last couple of years. So big growth. Obviously it offers a lot for players to do and see and take part in this game. And it'll really build out org and end game style gameplay. But this is a big initiative. Who knows when it might come by. Crafting. Good old crafty boy. implementing the ability for players to craft various items using resources from throughout the persistent universe. Pretty straightforward, very big deal. Crafting medications, crafting items, ship components, ships themselves. They're planning over 1,000 blueprints to be able to craft. 3 tiers on each of these blueprints, a bunch of materials with different material values that go into them that define whether or not the crafted goods you're making are the best people can get or the worst. It adds into the economy, it adds into gameplay, it gives people something to strive for, and it just in general builds out different ideas surrounding the game itself and how it functions. Let's see, after crafting we got base building. We got a little distracted. Base building includes all the work encompassing the ability for players to construct and maintain bases, including resource generation, commerce, and customization. Resource generation is the best part of this. Pulling resources out of planets is going to be cool. Player-to-player trading. This is a huge one, probably related to the ownership system. Implementing the ability for players to set up their own shops and sell wares to other players. This is like so freaking important. Holy crap. Kraken, Merchantman, anybody? Like, it goes beyond bases for that kind of thing. Player organizations, implementing the ability to create and fully manage player organizations, including a dedicated mobiGlas app. This is something I was hoping we would be pretty sure was coming out soon. I'm very surprised we didn't see any sign of this in game at CitizenCon. Pretty disappointing. I hope we hear something substantial about this in the first half next year, because I was thinking this would be a little bit sooner than what it felt like they were trying to tell us at CitizenCon. Social mobiGlas app, which I guess is different from the Org app. Creation of the new mobiGlas app to manage friends and contacts, as well as the ability to easily find and create groups. To be honest, there's like so much stuff on here. There's so much stuff missing from here that I would assume is still coming. Like, the whole mobiGlas app needs a rework. Not in terms of design. I think most of those apps have been updated, but the menu obviously is going to be different. That's not on here. It's like little things that definitely aren't on this. This is a high-level roadmap that I'm sure things will come and be added on top of. But the interesting thing is that they are saying that this is their next sort of thing, and as new updates come on, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, they will pull cards off of this and add them to those. So it does kind of make you wonder how many more cards are there besides what's on here? How much other stuff could we see that's not here be added to 4.1 through 4.5 or whatever? And how often will we be seeing cards like these added into those updates instead? Because each of these cards is an exciting sort of thing. Location stories, main stories, guilds, Star Sim, Global Illumination, player organizations. Any of these cards would be exciting to see on one of the new upcoming updates. Citizenship. Another card on here. Elevate your status in the verse by becoming a citizen to gain unique rewards and benefits. Pretty sure citizens were the only people who could fly spaceships before, or own bases, so it'll be interesting to see how this functions with the gameplay. Global Illumination, implementing it, providing further visual improvements to the lighting of both interior and exterior spaces. For all those who are saying that Star Citizen is being outdated graphically, GI should help a little bit. Star Audio is what I'm guessing they've changed their Claudius tool. They just changed it to Star Audio. I wonder if they've changed Mighty Bridge to Star Bridge or Mighty Star or something. Like, everything has star in it now. A new suite of tools and tech aimed at improving the quality and fidelity of sound in Star Citizen. This is probably also where we'll get the very famous, very exciting, and interesting sound redesigns, specifically when it comes to sound in space kind of stuff, like this.
The audio propagation tech that we've been rolling out makes it easier to change the soundscape in real time, and a nice use of that technology is to provide a more realistic option.
But yeah, that kind of stuff I think is what we'll see with Star Audio. Star Sim! Oh boy, this is a whole bunch of interesting conversation. This is why people are obsessed with Tony. These are the backend systems and tools simulating the state of the universe and economy dynamically responding to player actions. So Not a player-run economy, but player-affected economy. And this is all based around supply and demand of all the items in the game, including the minerals that are being made, how many of those minerals are needed for all of the spaceships and weapons and components being constructed in the verse, all the minerals needed to keep refineries at full stock. So all the refineries around a game will need shipments at all times to keep them running. Shops will need shipments from refineries. Space stations will need shipments from shops. All this stuff controlled by StarSim and dynamically generating missions so that we take part in those economic conflicts and we complete those jobs. And that's a lot. And the fact that they still haven't talked about it in depth is also a lot. Okay, content instancing. Another thing. Implementing new technology that allows both existing and new content to be instanced for more crafted group gameplay and experiences is basically just making dungeons in the game. There's a lot to be said about this, and I've already said a lot about it. We don't need to go into detail on it, but we'll have to see where this goes and how widely spread they're going to start instancing locations in the game. Dynamic server meshing. This is a very important one. If 4.0 is all about static server meshing, then we don't really have a target for dynamic server meshing, but this is the next step after it. It's the implementation of dynamic scaling and server reassignment for server meshing, allowing for MMO scale player counts. To make this most easily to understand, in the current game, the server mesh environment in 4.0, it will show you that there are 4 servers or however many there are operating in the shard. So imagine your shard is Stanton system. You have 4 servers, each controlling one of the planets, and then a 5th server controlling all of the space. If everybody in the game goes to Crusader, as the game is right now, you will still have all 5 servers running and keeping all parts of that star system in function, which, is good. That's fine. That's great. The game runs better than it always did before, but you're kind of wasting resources because you don't need to keep the other parts of the game running while everybody is in one place. So what dynamic server meshing does is if everybody goes to Crusader, it will split the people who are on Seraphim Station out from the people who are on Orison, from the people who are on Grimhex. All of those will be different servers that will spawn dynamically to account for the higher player base in that area. And then the other servers that are handling Microtech and Hurston and ArcCorp will shrink down or completely close off so that that space can not take load from the servers. So it actually helps to save costs switching from static to dynamic server meshing. And it will also make it so that even if all the players group together in the same server, it will still make sure that the game can run well. Whereas right now, even in a server meshed environment, if everybody goes to the same place, you run into that same problem we already have, which is that the server is trying to render and control a lot of different things. So dynamic server meshing is important, and it sounds like they've already gotten a lot of work done on heading in that direction as of right now. So we'll see how long it takes to get here, but we might see our first versions of dynamic server meshing by next year. From what Benoit has been saying, they really wanted to go straight to dynamic because of the cost savings and the overall end goal that it represented. Okay, Genesis Starchitect. This is a very, very big part of the game we haven't really covered yet in our own reviews of CitizenCon. I will probably have to do a video about this at some point. This is a new tool that scatters ground locations based on environmental and designer data to populate the world of Star Citizen at an unprecedented scale. And it is truly fucking unprecedented. I had a difficult time believing this when it was first shown. I continue to have a difficult time believing it will scale up as much as they want it to from what they've shown on the stage, but I've done researching. I've spoken with the dev who presented it, and they're very confident that this is a system that will fill these planets with a ton of points of interest. And it's insane to me. This is one of those things, kind of like StarSim or back then Quantum, that I look at and I'm just like, I need to see that to believe it. Because this is a problem that most games deal with. Doesn't matter what game you are, doesn't matter how big your game space is. The ability to fill your game space with interesting, unique locations that make sense for where they are is incredibly difficult, and usually it's just the best games that do a good job at this. So we will see how this goes. All right, continuing down the list, we've got Planetary V5 coming from Genesis, implementing the next generation of world creation with increased scale, complexity, and believability. This is basically the ability for people to this is like different biomes in the game. Much denser scattering and terrain generation, better foliage. We saw a higher focus on sunlight and not just humidity and temperature. We saw a focus on the geology of a system and whether a mountain can define how plants are growing. We saw that plants will be able to be scattered around a planet based on how they might spread from wind and stuff. We saw dynamic weather in this panel. A lot of stuff, and I think a lot of that has to do with them being able to further utilize the GPU like we were talking about earlier to do Planet Tech generation. This is another big one, to be honest. Planet Tech V5 is pretty cool looking. And here's dynamic weather like they mentioned. Real-time simulation of weather fronts on a planetary scale, including rain, wind, and thunder. Wonder if they'll include the snow from Microtech in there. But ultimately, this is a very cool one. We can actually take a quick look back at this because this is a really cool little demo. I don't think this was fully in the game. Like, this is how it's going to play out. I do think that this was dressed up and made to look nice for... dressed up to, play nice and look really nice for this video. But still pretty exciting and cool to watch.
Get back here. I'm getting out of this suit now. Powering up, flying out. We'll need to switch to IFR. See you on the other side.
Honestly, just cancel the whole game and work on weather, please. Thank you. Look at this lame ship. Okay, can anybody confirm, did they make it so the water is making a different sound in here because there's glass? Do we actually believe that's going to happen? Like, if you can't hear the water out here because you're in the hallway, but then when you get to the front, it's glass cockpit. You never heard people say Star Citizen is dated? Oh boy. Get it a couple times a month.
It's getting very sparky up here. Recommend deviation.
Yeah, that Aurora definitely could have avoided getting shot down there. That wasn't hard to get away from. So yeah, dynamic weather, that's another part of the Planet Tech they're working on. Main storyline, taken on the journey through Star Citizen universe by experiencing a handcrafted story with unique challenges and rewards. I think this could be very cool. The more I play games like RPGs, like Cyberpunk and stuff, the more I'm like, man, if they could just figure out how to do these simple go here, go there, get this, do that kind of missions throughout Star Citizen, that'd be amazing. I love Squadron, but Squadron's a military space opera. You could do more with Star Citizen and getting you to go to different places and experience different people and like do things in that game. I think a main story is a great opportunity to invest people in the lore, teach people more about the game they're actually playing, teach people how to play that game, and overall, yeah, get people more invested in like what is going on in the game itself. Location stories being the other side of that are new missions and narrative arcs set in specific areas, allowing players to experience the uniqueness of various locations in the verse. They mentioned these would be at Nyx, so I think we can expect these at Nyx for sure. But I also think these are things that we'll see in the different cities and landing zones, possibly in specific space stations, and definitely different outposts. Again, these would probably be outside of the contracts you get on the Mobi-Glass or the main story itself. These would be more like, oh, there's somebody standing off in the side of this outpost and they need to get something from a local cave, but their friend went and died already, so can you go get this stuff? And you find out there's like aliens in the cave and you get the stuff. I think those are kind of like location stories. Station warfare, where player organizations battle over multiple ground and space locations to gain the protection of planetary shields in lawless star systems. This is very org-focused. Say this is like the most org-focused thing in this whole Star Citizen 1.0. We've got the different guilds. We've already went over that, so we don't need to really focus on that. Utility tunnels, though, are a new location archetype that brings sandbox content to landing zones such as municipal works under ArcCorp. This is, I think, what they are referring to as their underground section of building interiors. I think this is the first part of building interiors they're doing. And the first place they'll do it is in ArcCorp. But I do hope that they eventually make them on each city, and those provide alternative routes of getting into cities so that we can smuggle stuff and take on different kinds of missions that require not just flying into a city, but doing something a little more shady. Got the Nyx system, of course, with the Pyro system. The Council is the illegal sort of criminal organization. The Mercenary Guild is a mercenary guild, obviously. Academy of Sciences is your science-based guild. United Resource Workers is your industrial guild. Interstellar Transport Guild is your transportation-focused guild, I guess. Interesting that it's outside of the industrial focus guild. Caster System and Terra System are the 4th and 5th system we're getting to. Building interiors are a big topic that I was worried they were not moving forward with. It says gameplay-focused layouts to fill the interiors of various buildings and landing zones and other points of interest. These, I feel, are really important parts of RPGs like Grand Theft Auto or Cyberpunk, where when you really think about the missions you're running in those games, it's not until you like pause and take a second before you realize you're in a building interior. They have created a system that builds these interiors with different themes and stories to give you a more interesting mission to run. And if they could do that in Star Citizen for different missions, huge success, I think. And I'm assuming that the tunnels are just a part of that. Yeah, and player housing, we hope. Been a little mum about that, though. But anyways, that's about it, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye, beautifuls.
Bye.